Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fortress Comic News, episode 71. My name is Chris. I'm one of your co-hosts. I did that backwards, and I'm alongside Mike.
It's all right. Yeah. Wait, you probably want to tell them what you're doing before you just give them your name. They're like, Chris. Wow, okay, that doesn't help me. But it's Mike. Yeah, I'm here. We have another interview for you guys today. It's Jeff Lemire. I don't know what to say about that. It's just Jeff Lemire. Chris got to interview him. Unfortunately, due to some scheduling issues, I could not make it for the interview. Hopefully, we can get him back on the show because there's some stuff I got to talk to that guy about. Also, hence why my background today is Black Hammer, because that is a fantastic book being written by Jeff Lemire right now, along with so much others that you'll hear in the interview.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Chris is like, oh, yeah.
Even though I missed a bunch, but still at the same time, we talked about so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on that note, too, Mike is the next couple months a busy man, so there's going to be a bunch of Mike-less episodes coming up, which makes me sad, but...
I mean, I wish... maybe I could find some way to... I don't know. We'll figure it out.
When you're an international businessman like Mike is, you gotta get your priorities straight.
I wish it was that cool. Like James Bond or something. Oh, man. That'd be awesome. Anyways, okay, we're gonna get through the news really quick, and then we'll get to that awesome interview and talk about comics after. Luke Cage season 2 trailer dropped. Looks pretty dope.
Yeah.
I like I don't really know much about Wishmaster, but I kind of like him as a villain.
Yeah, I like. Did you ever watch season 1?
Yeah.
Okay, I enjoyed season 1, even though I know a lot of people kind of shit on it, but
yeah,
I thought it was a fun season, and I like now that we're past kind of the origin stage, the stage that I traditionally really don't like, and he's out in the open, and now people are going to start hunting for him, and
yeah, he's definitely not hiding in this season. He's like making a commercial in the beginning of it. Yeah, it seems cool. And then the cop has her robo arm. I don't know what the character name is, but Misty, yeah. Misty has a Misty Knight, right? Is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's got like half RoboCop going on, which is pretty cool. Yeah, we'll see where it goes. It looks like this one's a little more comic book-esque. Booky. Yeah. I
do like that they're sticking with the Harlem backdrop and the hip hop soundtrack with it too. I thought that had a lot.
Yeah, that's cool. Some exciting news. DC Universe announced. Woohoo! Streaming service, yeah. Not a whole lot to be streaming, but
yeah, I mean, obviously the 4 shows that go with it: Titans, Young Justice, Harley Quinn, Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
But my question is, like, what else?
Yeah.
I'm glad they announced new stuff, but, like, is this going to give me all of the catalog for Batman 66, for Batman Animated Series, and, so on and so forth?
Yeah, like all the DC movies, Man of Steel, everything. Is that you can watch them whenever you want? Is that how that's going to work? Or?
Yeah, like, that's what I really want to know, because unlike Marvel, DC and Warner Brothers have all their stuff kind of in-house.
Yeah.
So I don't see why it all can't be there. And if it's all there, I think it's worth it. If it's
I just don't understand they can't. I really think they just can't work with Netflix because Netflix has so much Marvel stuff. I think it's the only reason they just don't want to do it. Like no, we got to do our own thing.
I mean, yeah, that, and I mean, that if what I'm saying is correct and they get all these different things, you're buying it.
Yeah, for sure.
As am I. So that's another reason. Like, it's just a moneymaker there. But.
Yeah. Rick and Morty is renewed for another season, and Justin Roiland was it Justin Roiland or no? It was Dan Harmon tweeted a picture of like 70 more episodes.
Yeah.
Which would be 7 more seasons, which would end on 10 seasons if they actually do it, which is pretty cool. I would definitely watch all of them. That's for sure. And a lot of people are complaining like, "Oh, last season wasn't as good." Blah blah blah. It's like just more Rick and Morty is not a bad thing. I mean, every episode could just be another alternate reality. It's a genius idea.
Yeah, and I haven't had a chance to watch season 3 yet. It comes in the mail in a few days, but from the first 2 seasons, I mean, if the season's a little down, you can't expect greatness on every episode, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. The Flash this week. Did you watch it?
I did.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I really wish they gave us a tease of that other speedster. It's like I wish we'd already figure out what's going on with that. I feel like we've been talking about Defoe for like ever now.
2 episodes left.
Yeah, so something's gonna happen. I'm trying to think of the big takeaways from this episode.
The big takeaways were that Killer Frost will eventually come back, and they got this bomb to take down the satellite. Other than that, it felt like a filler episode to me.
Yeah, it really did. I was like, all the stuff that happened, there's really only like now they just have a way to take out the satellites. But I can't imagine that Defoe hasn't planned for it like he's done every time. Like they keep going about things. They're like, no, he definitely hasn't thought of this. And he's like, no, I thought of that. It's like, oh, he hasn't thought of this. No, he's thought of that. It's like every time.
I did enjoy the Council of Wells parts of the episode.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy Wells's like little part at the end there where he's still trying to be a part of the team, but he has lost his intelligence. So he's still drawing on that board.
Uh-huh.
And he's like just a smiley face. Plus a frowny face.
Yep. Yeah. That was like his trying to do like an emotional equation thing.
Yeah.
The Council of Ricks is funny to see like Ricks. Oh my god, the Council of Wells, like the Guido Wells is pretty funny, like the Jersey Shore Wells, the French one. Yeah. Got a new movie trailer for. Speaking of movies, really quick. Are you gonna go see Teen Titans Go to the movies?
I am, because we have a kid in the house who's really into Teen Titans Go, so I gotta take him.
I don't watch all the Teen Titans Go episodes, but this like looks hilarious. Just because the bigger heroes are like involved in this.
I've been an outlier with the whole Teen Titans Go thing, where like I kind of enjoy it. It's funny. It's obviously the old Teen Titans show was better, just because it was a more serious approach to it. But for what this is, I enjoy it, and. You know, the kid likes it. If the kid's watching, it's better than him watching fucking like Paw Patrol or something. But you know,
yeah, they do like put like Easter eggs in there and stuff. And I don't know, Nicolas Cage voicing Superman is pretty awesome. When I watched the trailer, I'm like, yeah, this actually works pretty well. Yeah, I didn't think I was gonna like it at first, but yeah. So we got a Death of Superman trailer. This is just DC animated doing their big stories as animated series or animated movies, which it looks pretty good. It's all the newer editions of everybody, like their costumes and stuff. Yeah,
it's like the DC animated universe versions of them.
Yeah,
which is what it is. I just don't care for Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I don't care. I don't care for the guy who voices Batman.
No, a lot of the new voice actors, because I know they're trying to get away from the old ones. I'm just too stuck on the old ones. But
I know, it really sucks. I'm too stuck on Kevin Conroy. But or even if they use the guy, if they use the guy from the Dark Knight video game series, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's good.
From the Arkham?
Yeah, the Arkham games. I mean,
yeah, you mean Kevin Conroy?
Oh no! For one of the Batmans, didn't they use Troy?
For Arkham Origins, Troy Baker played. He played Joker. Someone else played Batman.
Troy Baker's done Batman before though, and it's not bad.
Yeah, I think he does it for Telltale actually.
Oh, okay. That's okay. That's why he plays Batman. Yeah, because like I don't hate his Batman, but I don't know who was doing the new animated series, but I'm like, yeah. But what about Kevin Conroy? You had a story?
I was going to say, speaking of animated DC movies, I watched Batman Ninja.
Oh, how was that?
Morning. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. It was like crazy and weird and very anime inspired, but
yeah, it's cool. I'm almost done with it, but yeah.
Yeah, I say anime inspired. When you look at the cast, I'm pretty sure it was made as an anime and then translated. But yeah, there's a lot of like kaiju influence and obviously ninja influence, and basically just reimagining of all these characters as if they were in feudal Japan. And it's a lot of fun. It's really good. You have to enjoy anime to watch it. If you don't enjoy anime style, you're probably gonna have a rough time getting through it. But I thought it was a really good movie.
Yeah. I wasn't a huge fan of like the anime backdrop, but with like the 3D characters, I don't know. I didn't like the 3D animation. I wish it was just all like, I don't know, art style, like actual anime style.
See, I'm going to go on the other side of that for you because I really liked the kind of cel-shaded 3D style.
Yeah.
Like it reminded me of like a Borderlands video game. I thought it worked really well.
It's just different. I don't know. I'm just used to anime, I guess, being one way. But the story is still really cool. Yeah. Death of Superman trailer, we talked about that. Yeah. Peter Jackson might be directing a DC movie. Might be. We don't know if he is, but if he would direct a DC movie, it's got to be Kamandi. The kid with the tiger, dude. It's the only movie he could do. I don't know.
Kamandi.
I'm just trying to think of Kamandi. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a fantasy realm stuff he could. I don't know, because Lord of the Rings. What could he do? He works well with big open worlds with all this crazy shit happening. So
yeah, that's why I found this announcement weird. Like, I don't know what I want him to do.
Oh, he did a Kamandi movie. He did King Kong was basically his like Kamandi. He did a movie about a secret island. Yeah, I don't know. It's
weird because I guess he's between that and the Amazon Lord of the Rings TV show. So,
which is like, you've only done one thing most of your life.
Yeah. I just don't get what you'd have him do. Like, Superman's already taken, Batman's already taken, Flash's already taken, Green Lantern's, like, all the major players are already taken.
Is Flash taken, though? I don't know. We're always like, they're dropping directors left and right.
And then, I went to New Gods, but they already announced the director for that.
Yeah.
And it's like, what else is there?
Swamp Thing? Probably Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing, but they're doing a TV show with him, so I don't know if they would do... I don't know. It's really weird to me.
It's a big old mess is what it sounds like to me. But there isn't really anything there's no property I could think of right now to be like, yeah, Peter Jackson. You know? Yeah. Maybe Animal Man. I don't know.
Oh, Animal Man, that'd be sweet.
Was that it? Did I find it? Was that the one?
I just want Animal Man anything. So
yeah, that'd be awesome. All right, so we're gonna cut to this awesome interview with Jeff Lemire, and we'll see you guys on the other side.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back. We have a very special guest for you this week. Author of more books than I can name, but big ones being Black Hammer, Moon Knight, and most recently the Terrifics. I have Jeff Lemire with me today.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good.
So we'll start with kind of the most obvious, but I mean, how did you get your start in comics? What was your upbringing there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up, loving and reading comics. I started reading comics when I was probably about 5 or 6 years old, and I always loved them and was drawing them ever since I was a kid. So they've always been a big part of my life. But, it wasn't something I ever thought I could pursue as a career. It didn't seem very realistic. I grew up in a really small town in Canada and surrounded by factory workers and farmers and, no one in the arts at all. And let alone someone doing something as kind of specific and hard to break into as comics. So I didn't really see it as a career goal, but I I went to when I got out of high school and stuff, I went to film school, and I moved to Toronto, the city here, and I thought film may be a way to sort of pursue storytelling and something. At the time in the late 90s, early 2000s in Toronto, the film industry was really booming in Toronto. So there were jobs, at least, and so I kind of thought, well, this is something I could do. When you're young, you're trying to figure out what you're going to do, and you don't really know, but you try things. So I did that, and film school was cool. I learned a lot about storytelling and even just cinematography and stuff, which I think helped with making comics and everything. But the further along I got in that program, the more I missed drawing and the more I missed comics. And also I had kind of gotten out of comics a little bit reading them, in the 90s when all the superhero stuff kind of really started to suck. And I read a lot of Vertigo stuff and things like that, but I got more into movies and stuff. But then around 99, 2000, when I was finishing up the film program, I kind of rediscovered comics and drawing, and there were some really good comic shops here in the city, and I started seeing different cartoonists who I hadn't really been exposed to, like people like Paul Pope and or even underground guys like Dan Clowes and Charles Burns. And so just kind of seeing the potential of the medium in different ways, and it kind of reignited my passion. And when I got out of film school, I just decided I wanted to do comics. So I started doing it, just kind of on my own. I didn't know anyone else who was into comics or made comics. So it was really me just figuring it out on my own and just trying to figure out what kind of tools they used to draw and not really knowing. And, this is kind of, the internet wasn't really what the internet is now. So you couldn't just go online and ask questions about so I was just trying all kinds of different pens and brushes and stuff and just sort of figure it all out on my own. And, I did that for a couple of years, and I started to self-publish little comics, little zines here into the city. And I would work, I worked in kitchens. So I worked as a cook, and I would work night shifts in the kitchens, and then I would just draw all day. And I just did that for about 5 years, just slowly getting, a little bit better, publishing little zines and things. And then around 2005, I kind of did my first longer form book, which was called Lost Dogs, and self-published that and actually got it distributed through Diamond and everything. So that was kind of like my first published work. And then soon after that, I started doing the Essex County trilogy of graphic novels, and Top Shelf published those. And, one thing just kind of led to another, where I went from doing stuff with Top Shelf, small press stuff, to working at Vertigo. I pitched stuff to some people at Vertigo, and I ended up getting the Sweet Tooth series and stuff like that. So one project kind of led me to the next, and then doing Sweet Tooth at Vertigo kind of led me to being asked to write things for DC proper. This would have been about 2010, I guess, at this point. So that was about almost a 10-year period of before I got to sort of writing and doing stuff regularly at DC and Vertigo.
So you mentioned self-publishing, getting distributed through Diamond. How difficult was that before the age of really major social media or even Kickstarter?
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing. I had no community at all. I didn't know anyone in the city who made comics. I was in a vacuum, doing it, and I didn't go to art school either, so I'm all self-taught. And yeah, I mean, it really was just. It was really tough. The only reason I think I got into the Diamond catalog with that book was that I won Peter Laird, one of the creators of the Ninja Turtles, had a grant that he used to give out once, he used to give 5 grants every year to first-time publishers to kind of help them get their first book published and get it distributed through Diamond and stuff. And I won one of those for Lost Dogs, and so I think that's the only reason I got in the catalog, And so it was. Back then, it was really DIY, where you're at Kinko's and Xeroxing stuff and mailing them out to shops. And, it was very different than today, where you can just hop online and ask creators questions and find other people who are trying to do what you were trying to do and have a community beyond, your physical, the town you live in or whatever. So it was a really different time. But I think it was kind of cool and interesting too to do it that way and come up that way, because I really did have to learn every aspect of the business on my own, and I did teach myself how to do all that stuff. You know, I didn't have anyone to rely on. So, well, I probably could have maybe made certain steps a lot faster if I did have a community or did have the internet. I think it was good to kind of go through that and pay your dues doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sometimes the struggles are almost worth it. But so you say 2010, you start writing for DC. That's kind of when you pop on my radar. Most notably for me, when New 52 launches, you take over Animal Man and eventually Green Arrow, and then I really start to fall in love with your work around the time when you flipped over to Marvel and the Moon Knight series. So I'd love to talk about the Moon Knight series.
Sure. Yeah.
Where did that come from? Because that book to me felt like an Image Comics book in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, it was weird. You know, jumping back just because I think it kind of leads to Moon Knight, is that when I had done the first few things at DC, I did Superboy and the Atom and a couple other things, but I had never written comics for another artist at that point. You know, I'd only ever written and drawn my own stuff. So there was a bit of a learning curve there for me on a few projects where I was trying to figure out how to bring my voice to stuff that I wasn't drawing as well, because that was a really different thing for me. So it took a couple projects, and I think when you mentioned Animal Man, that was the one that kind of, sometimes you just get the right character at the right time in your life and it all lined up, you know, and Animal Man was where I think I really clicked and found my voice as a writer. And I think that same thing kind of happened. You know, I did Animal Man and Green Arrow at DC. I did a bunch of other stuff too, but those were the two most successful, I think, runs I had at DC. And then going over to Marvel was almost like a fresh start. And I was, you know, I worked on a few things, but again, it was that Moon Knight, something just clicked with that character, you know, and a lot of it too is, it depends what artist you get paired with. That can make or break a book, because comics, at the end of the day, they're a visual medium, and a really great comic book script with bad art isn't going to be a good comic book, but a really mediocre comic book script with great art is probably going to be a pretty good comic book. So I was lucky enough to get Greg Smallwood, who was just, you know, what I loved about Moon Knight was, well, I thought he was just a really underused and cool character, and he had this whole history of identity and his mental illness, and there was just a lot of rich stuff psychologically to explore with that character. But I really also wanted to tie it into his entire history, because I really liked, he's one of those characters. Sometimes I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but that's kind of what Moon Knight is. Anyway, he's all over. Sometimes you get these gigs on books for these characters and you have to reread the old stuff, and it's torture, you know, it's just really bad. And there might be one or two good runs, but some of it's, you know, but Moon Knight, it was kind of all excellent, you know, like the original stuff by Doug Munch and Sienkiewicz is like, that's classic stuff from the 70s, you know, and then a lot of the later stuff too, you know, like the Warren Ellis stuff that he did right before me was brilliant. And I even liked, the Bendis and Malieve run too. So like, there's a lot of really good stuff in that character's history already that I wanted to sort of use. And I was lucky with Greg because he could mimic different styles. And I don't know, everything just really came together where I had an artist who was on the same wavelength as me. And we had this vision for the character and of using his different identities and his different, just doing different, you know, different styles of drawing and different personalities and mining different parts of the character's history. And he was just really on the same page with me, and it all really worked well, you know. So it's great when that happens. It doesn't always happen, but it's great when it does.
Yeah, and I mean, I've enjoyed Moon Knight for a while. I feel like that was kind of a turning point for him, because if you're reading the current run as well, like they really mine that idea that you kind of set in the flipping from different personalities kind of at will. So you brought up Animal Man. We'll jump backwards and go to that, because Animal Man was another run that I really enjoyed. How different is it to write a superhero that's very family oriented? Oh,
I mean, I prefer it. It's perfect for me. That was the perfect character, because everything I had done before Animal Man, before I went to DC, was all about families. You know, my Essex County books, and I love my favorite thing to write is the family dynamic anyway. So most superheroes you don't have that opportunity because most of them don't have kids like Buddy Baker does. So that was just perfect for me. And as soon as I got that, it just, I'm a dad too, and this was back in 2011, so my son was fairly young, so I was kind of like a new father, and I could put a lot of the fears and weird stuff I was feeling into that character, and Buddy almost became a surrogate for me and some things I was going through or feeling. And then you just take sort of the supernatural and the superhero and the horror stuff and kind of use those as metaphors for the things any father, any family faces, and it just really worked for me. And so I loved writing that character as a dad and as a husband, and because I'm a dad and I'm a husband, so I could really, it's something I could really relate to and really put myself into in a way that you can't so much on things like, Green Arrow or whatever. He's like this young millionaire playboy, and that's not really my life, So it wasn't as natural, but Buddy was very natural. He felt like a friend, like he felt like a real person more than other superheroes maybe. And I think I took a lot of that to Black Hammer with me, where I just tried to make them real people and worry less about the superhero stuff and more about the characters,
Yeah, and let's jump over to Black Hammer, because that book, ever since it launched, has been on top of my list personally. I've been telling everybody on this to listen to the show to read it. I mean, Black Hammer is definitely, it feels like an homage to kind of the golden silver age of comics. What is this book to you? I mean, where did this idea come from?
It's a long gestating idea. I mean, I had come up with kind of going back to what we talked about earlier when I was doing the Essex County graphic novels and sort of self-publishing and stuff. I always loved superhero comics. I grew up reading superhero stuff, especially DC stuff. I was a real DC kid, so I read, anything DC published between 1983 and 1993 basically is right in my wheelhouse. That's the stuff I was a kid reading, and I love that stuff. And back in 2007, 2008, when I was still just doing small press stuff, I never in a million years thought I would work for Marvel or DC. I just thought, well, first of all, my drawing style is so, idiosyncratic and different. I definitely would never draw for those companies. And I just thought I would never work for them. But I also love superheroes. So I thought, well, I could do my version of superheroes, like an indie version of superheroes. And it was almost like Essex County, but with superheroes, all these characters living on a farm. And I could pull from all the different eras of superhero and comic book history that I loved and make these homages, but kind of make my own characters out of them as well. And so that's kind of what I was working on. This was, over a decade ago, but the project never got off the ground. Other things came up, and I started doing Sweet Tooth and all these other projects. So I never had time to draw it myself. But I had all these great ideas and characters that I loved. And every couple of years I'd pull out those sketchbooks and try to find something to do with it. And then in 2013, 14, when I got out of contract at DC the first time, I started thinking about writing some things for other artists, creator owned. I pulled out Black Hammer again, and Dean Ormston was an artist who I'd met in the UK a couple times when I was over there doing shows, and I actually tried to get him on Animal Man, coincidentally, a couple times because I loved his horror kind of aesthetic, that he had. So when I pulled out Black Hammer, I offered it to Dean, just knowing that if I was going to do a superhero thing like this, I didn't want an artist whose work looked like traditional mainstream superhero stuff. I wanted someone who had a different kind of style and a different way of telling stories and stuff. So taking all my old ideas from a decade before and giving them to Dean, and then him sort of bringing himself to it. That's really, that's the version of Black Hammer that's out now is sort of that, something that came from a place, just sort of a love letter to comics and to superheroes from someone who never thought they'd get a chance to actually do them. And then 10 years later, when I kind of had a career and had done superheroes for a number of years and was kind of burnt out on them. So this was my chance again to do superheroes my way without having to jump through all the editorial hoops and fit into all the continuity at Marvel or DC, and just kind of I could really do my own thing with it. So it was kind of my statement on superheroes without anyone else involved, just me doing my own thing.
And I gotta say, the most recent issue where you kind of went back to and did number 1 with the Age of Doom, you got me good. I was convinced we were going to get the answer right away, and it was going to lead to something cool, and you literally swooshed it right out of the scene.
Yeah.
So
the answers are coming, though. I will say that some people are worried that it's like I'm just going to keep the carrot dangling, but the answers are coming pretty soon. It's not like the big answers about where they are and everything, that's not going to be at the end of the series. It's going to be really soon, and then things shift dramatically, and we go from there. So there definitely are answers coming.
And I also love how you've had the 3 solo series, the 4-issue series, kind of exploring the backstory of these. Were these also a part of the plan in the beginning to be like, I have these characters that show up for a second or maybe don't show up at all, and they build the universe? Or was this something that along the way you found and thought it'd be cool?
Yeah, it came from a couple of things. It came from the fact that the series was successful, so it allowed me to kind of do more things, which, when you start something, you don't know if it's going to work. So, but also it came from the fact that Dean, the artist, had some health issues, so he kind of slowed down a bit, and we actually needed to have a couple fill-in issues to give him time. So I was like, oh, what am I going to do, And then I did the one fill-in issue that was mostly about Lucy and her kind of learning about some of her father's villains, in issue 12. And that, when I did that issue, then that gave me the idea to do the Sherlock Frankenstein miniseries. And then once I had kind of done one miniseries and kind of got a taste for building the universe, it didn't stop. So now, I did the Dr. Star, and we have Quantum League coming, and I think we have 3 others coming soon too. So it's like, it just, the success of it kind of snowballs, where now I'm just building this massive universe, and it's like addictive, and I can't stop. So it's a lot of fun.
I like to hear that because I've been really enjoying it. So
Thanks.
We got to talk about the Terrifics next. Terrifics another one that I wasn't sure about when I first heard it, but I've come to really enjoy it. So my first question, I want you to either confirm or dispel this myth for me. Is this you trying to do the Fantastic Four, or is this something else that we're not seeing?
Well, it's kind of started off. Actually, it started off without the Fantastic Four stuff. If I'm being honest, I think it was. The real genesis was Dan DiDio and I texting back and forth possible ideas for things I could work on at DC again, and I pitched Metamorpho to him because I love Metamorpho, and his response to me was he loves the character too, but it never works as a solo character. Like sales wise, Metamorpho just can't succeed, But he said he's better in a team. Why don't you put him in a team? So I started thinking about that, and he's like, oh, you can also have Plastic Man. So then I had Metamorpho and Plastic Man, and I started trying to figure out what kind of team they could be in, Mm-hmm. and I started thinking about things, and I think my original pitch actually had Animal Man and Maxine with those 2 guys, and it was going to be this weirdo super team. And Dan said maybe you should do some new stuff. You've already done Animal Man, and so I don't know, the Fantastic Four thing. I think I think when I kind of just stopped and realized, well, we basically have someone with Mr. Fantastic's powers and someone with Ben Grimm's powers already. Why not just have some fun with this? So then Mr. Terrific and Mr. Fantastic obviously are kind of like a funny comparison. And then we had those 3, and then we had to figure out Invisible Woman, and Phantom Girl was an obvious one. So it became kind of a joke, So it wasn't really me so much trying to do the Fantastic Four as just this weird kind of game I was playing. But yeah, I mean, the comparisons are obvious, and it's kind of tongue in cheek. We're not trying to hide the fact that it's an homage to that team. But at the end of the day, Plastic Man is a very different character from Mr. Fantastic. And so Metamorpho is very different from Ben Grimm and so on. So beyond the surface kind of comparisons, they really do start to take on their own sort of personality once you get past that stuff. So it wasn't really I guess to answer your question, the mandate wasn't do Fantastic Four. It was just me and Dan sort of hobbling together something weird, and it became that. Yeah.
Well, it becomes pretty obvious about I think it's in the second issue where it's revealed that they're kind of bound together, even though they don't want to be. So
yeah.
So right there's your big answer. But so the joke I made with that is, you're doing Fantastic Four DC, and now just announced you're doing Sentry, and a lot of people make the Superman comparisons. So
pretty funny. Yeah, and it's funny too, because my dream books for both companies would be Superman at DC and Fantastic Four at Marvel. So, but it wasn't any grand design. I kind of stumbled into those things. It was sort of like when I did Green Arrow at DC, and then my first Marvel book was Hawkeye. The two archers. These aren't things you plan, but they're kind of funny when they happen. But yeah, the Sentry thing came out of nowhere too. So. But that's another cool character in that he's psychologically, there's a lot going on there, much like Moon Knight, where he has a lot of issues that are pretty fun to deal with as a writer. So, so I guess I'm doing Superman at Marvel and Fantastic Four at DC. So who would have thought?
We had a lot of fun with that when it was announced. So yeah. Let's pitch to people on Sentry. I mean, what do you got? What can we expect from this book?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a character. Actually, kind of again going back to something we talked about earlier. Like when that first Sentry series came out in, I think it might have been like 99, 2000. I don't know when it came out. The Jay Lee one, Paul Jenkins. That was like one of the few superhero books. For some reason, I picked that up. I think it was Jay Lee's art that really kind of grabbed me, and so I read that back when it came out, and I really liked that series. So when his name came up, I already kind of had this fondness for that story and that character, and I just thought it could be a really fun way to do something in the Marvel universe, much like Moon Knight, where I could kind of explore the psychology of a character who has some mental health issues and some identity issues, and use the big superhero stuff as, again, big metaphors for that. It just seemed fun, and Marvel doesn't really have a character who, well, I guess they do have Thor, but no one with sort of Superman level powers other than the Sentry, and that always kind of made him fun and unique to me. But you also have to kind of figure out how he fits in the current Marvel landscape, and that was where the story that we're doing kind of came from Donny Cates had brought him back in Doctor Strange. So he had already kind of done the legwork for me. So he was already back. So I just kind of could have some fun and do whatever I wanted with him, basically. So, I mean, I don't want to spoil my story. So it's hard to, I'm just kind of dancing around the question because the first issue has a lot of kind of cool surprises, and I don't want to ruin them.
Well, you got my pre-order, so I guess you don't have to worry.
I will say I didn't want to just redo. One thing about that character, it seems to be the same story seems to be getting told again and again, where it's like the Sentry returns, and then inevitably the Void will come too, and they'll have a clash. And I felt like I didn't want to do that again, so I kind of start there and then kind of flip it in a weird way that kind of takes the character in a new sort of the next stage of his evolution, I guess.
Cool. So my co-host couldn't be here tonight, but he was a fan of Royal City. So he wanted me to ask you, and I'm going to quote him here. How was it writing such a heavily emotional story like Royal City?
Yeah, well, I mean, most of the stuff that I draw myself tends to be like that, and it tends to be pretty emotionally intense stuff, character-driven work. It's just kind of my preference. Obviously at the end of the day, when I can just do anything, that seems to be what I keep getting pulled back to, these sort of really emotionally heavy family dramas. So, yeah, I mean, it's always intense, but, yeah, I don't know. It's, for me, I like stories that make you feel something, It's so much of our entertainment can be kind of light and frivolous, and you kind of watch it and have fun watching it, and then you don't think about it again. And I kind of prefer things that are a bit heavier and kind of linger. So those are the kind of stories I sort of try to create when I can. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things I've always liked about your stuff is we always hear the debate back and forth that comics have gotten too dark and people want them to be lighter. And I I hear that, and I like the people that do kind of all ages comics as well.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also that other side that's like these real stories, these just other, not like dark, heavy.
Yeah, I think something needs to be dark for it to be emotionally, for it to be something you can invest in emotionally with the characters and that you can care about, and can make you feel a wide range of things. You know, that doesn't necessarily it doesn't need to be grim and gritty and dark for that to be the case. You know, for it to be more adult. I think you can do all kinds of stories with comics, and I think that speaks to, you know, when I was a kid, most of the comics I read were just straight up superhero comics. And at that time, to be honest, like, it was mostly young boys reading comics. So that's who they were geared towards, you know. But now in 2018, where the readership is so diverse and so much smarter than we were back then, we've read so many more comics and seen so many more TV shows and movies. And we kind of are so savvy with storytelling, you know, the readers, that I think they demand stories that are more challenging and that can speak to them. And so I think there's room for all kinds of stuff. You know, a good comic is a good comic. I think the comics we're making need to be more diverse to kind of reflect the audience, which has gotten more diverse, you know. So I don't know, I'm kind of rambling now.
Which is something I love, because I feel like I have a very diverse taste in comics as well. So I'm going to be honest, the one book I'm not reading, Gideon Falls, but I am intrigued by it. You're back with Andrea Sorrentino on that book.
Yeah.
What's the pitch there?
The pitch? Yeah, well, it's my first horror book, which is kind of really fun. But I mean, Andrea and I have worked together now for pretty consistently for I guess most 2012. We started doing Green Arrow. So pretty much since then, because we went from that, we had a little break, and then we did Logan. We actually started working on Gideon at the same time we were doing Old Man Logan, because we were both, I think, anxious to do more creator-owned and to do a creator-owned book together. So we started throwing ideas around, and just knowing Andrea, his sensibility is a much darker kind of sensibility to begin with. So I wanted something that would play to his strengths, you know. And I hadn't really done a horror book, and I love a good mystery and a good kind of psychological horror thing. So the Gideon Falls, the high concept pitch is it's this young guy named Norton who lives in the city, and he thinks he's found some sort of secret or some kind of conspiracy hidden in the city's trash. So he's collecting, cataloging, and studying pieces of trash from the city. And obviously most people think he's just mentally ill, but we come to realize he's actually finding and putting together pieces of something, a building. And this building is called the Black Barn, and it's this sort of I guess a haunted house in a way, this barn in this small town that reappears throughout history and brings sort of madness and doom with it. So the mystery is, how does Norton in the city with these pieces of garbage he's finding connect to this small town where this barn keeps reappearing, and these two different worlds are sort of slowly drawn together. And it's, you know, a lot of murder and mayhem in there as well. So it's a pretty dark, pretty creepy book, but it's been really fun to work on.
I think you just sold a trade to me.
Cool.
So I got to end on this one. People who've been listening to this podcast in the beginning know that Mike and I started the show, and one of the things we really enjoyed were we always had what we called a shitty villain of the week, which was really just us taking a kind of a Z-list villain and having fun with it. So you have a book announced. It was the Inferior 5, if I'm correct, with Keith Giffen.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So that one seems to fall right in our wheelhouse. What can you tell us about that book?
That's a fun project. It's I'll try to explain it because it's pretty wacky. So, well, going back, Keith Giffen is my co-creator on that book, and Keith, I'm a huge fan of Keith. I grew up reading. Like I said earlier, a lot of the stuff I was reading was 80s and 90s. So Keith Giffen was sort of the man at DC at that time. He was doing everything, you know. So he's one of my favorite creators to begin with, and I've been lucky enough to kind of get to know Keith as a friend working at DC, and Dan DiDio and Keith came to me about a year ago with this idea for Inferior 5, which is they kind of wanted to do almost like a Stranger Things set in the DC universe, where a group of kids and the DC universe would be the backdrop to these mysteries and weird things they were kind of investigating. But the hook of it is that it's set in the DC universe of 1988. So the backdrop of the book is going to be all the comics that were being published by DC in 1988. So back then the big event was Invasion, which Keith ironically co-wrote. So Invasion has just happened, and it's a group of kids whose homes and families were sort of displaced by the invasion, and they moved to this small town in Arizona and meet one another, and this town is just completely bonkers and nothing makes sense, but they're the only ones that seem to see all the weird stuff going on. It starts there, and then it gets weirder. And then I'm also, in each issue, I'll be writing and drawing a backup strip featuring the character the Peacemaker, who was also being published in 88. And that's going to guest star all kinds of great DC characters from the 80s, like Firestorm and Captain Atom and Suicide Squad, and all these books that DC was putting out back then will sort of all tie into this weird story we're telling about these 5 kids. So yeah, it's a pretty wacky book.
So before you go, I gotta throw out my favorite character we discovered through that segment, and the one we actually ended on because we decided that after that we couldn't do better. Have you heard of Codpiece?
No, but you're right. You can't do better than that. I just need to know. Is he Marvel or DC?
It is DC. Codpiece was right after Grant Morrison finished his Doom Patrol run. I forget the woman's name who took over, but she wrote a few issues, and she did this character, Codpiece, as the villain.
Rachel Pollack. Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yeah. And she, the character had a codpiece that had many different weapons in it. It's such a fantastic idea. It needs to come back, so whoever you got a contact for me.
I think I might be able to slip him into Inferior 5 pretty easily, actually.
If you do that, you might hear screams from my comic shop.
That's pretty cool.
But hey, thanks for being on the show. This has been a great interview. Tell everybody where they can find you online so they can keep up with all these amazing projects you got going on.
Oh yeah, I think the easiest spot is just Twitter, and it's just my name at Jeff Lemire, and I'm pretty active in promoting my stuff on there. So yeah, it's the easiest one.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again for being on. Like I said, we extremely appreciate your time.
Yeah, man, thanks a lot.
And we're back.
Hey, what an interview, huh?
Yeah, it was fun. Glad I did that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you did it.
Yeah, so we got to chat about Inferior 5, and I felt like I had to make him the pitch for Codpiece to add to Inferior 5.
It had to happen, and the fact that he didn't know who Codpiece was, it makes me feel a little bit better. Of like, okay, we're doing our work, our diligence over here to make it known. I feel like we should be handwriting letters to DC, being like, guys, in case you didn't know, we found A through Z of these heroes, and like, this is how they would work. You need to do this. I feel like we should do that for them. Yeah,
come on, Didio, Lee, you're sitting on gold.
Yeah.
Lee, you got trying to improve your product.
Stop streaming on Twitch for a day and just go back, find the backlog. He's such a busy dude. I follow his Instagram. That guy's all over the world.
But I promise you, if that character shows up in any of his books, especially Inferior 5, you are all going to hear me yelping from my house when I'm reading.
I'm so excited for Inferior 5, though. Oh, man, I wish I could have talked to him about it. Just that love of shitty villains, dude. Oh, I'm so glad that it's, people get it. And it's nice.
And just the fact that it's set in the 80s, right after the Invasion storyline, and Keith Giffen is a part of it.
Yeah.
Man.
Doesn't get better than that.
No.
Okay, so let's talk comics. Comic news. This is the fortress of comic news, last time I checked. So there's a rumor going around that the next DC crossover event is to be called Crisis. Huh.
All capital letters.
All caps. That is, wow, that's original. I think they want to tell us that this this one's gonna matter. Maybe, I don't know.
It can be said that this isn't a reboot because Jim Lee was very loud about it on Twitter the other day that we're not rebooting again. But it seems kind of weird that after all the crises, and after Dark Knight's Metal or Dark Crisis, that we finally got things like in line, and you want to jump into another crisis. It seems a little weird to me.
Kind of weird and soon.
But I'll read it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of I guess we'll find out when. Give me like a taste of it, and then we can see where it's going from there. Yeah,
and we'll see. This is, like I said, this is a rumor. I think Bleeding Cool was the one that originally talked about it, so it could just be a rumor.
The Deadpool comic might be rebooting, which that probably holds more water than the Crisis thing because Marvel's been doing that lately.
It does, because it kind of happened, I guess, in Deadpool 300, or what is the Despicable Deadpool 300?
Yeah.
He takes a bunch of pills and wipes his memory.
Oh.
So it's kind of a soft reboot where he's still Deadpool and he still has a feeling that what he is, but he doesn't have memory of anything he's done. So now Scotty Young comes in and gets a fresh start, which is intriguing because, as people who've listened to the show forever know, I'm not a fan of Deadpool, but I usually try Deadpool when a new creative team comes in, and Scotty Young, I'm going to try it.
Yep.
And we'll see, maybe he does something different that I enjoy.
Oh man, maybe Chris is a fan now. Who knows? It could happen. Okay. Let's talk about what we read this week.
All right. I have a feeling we read the same books this week.
Oh man. Okay, let's talk about Batman the White Knight number 8.
Okay, I'm batting 0 already.
Well, you didn't read it?
I haven't had a chance to yet, no.
Okay, well, I'll just talk about it. This is the final installment, 8 out of number 8 for White Knight. It was a good ending. Basically ends with the Joker being locked up again. You find that Harley Quinn kind of orchestrated everything. It ends up being, they pitched this idea of Joker being the. I almost wish it was a story about Joker was the good guy and Batman was the bad guy, like an Elseworld story, because it kind of comes full circle and we're just back to Batman being Batman again. He says that he's going to help out the GCPD some more, but I really think Sean Murphy's art really kept me along with the book. It wasn't a terrible story. It was a good story. Just okay, this is kind of nothing really changed from it, I guess. Or it wasn't the story I was expecting. But yeah, it was good. There's some really, really good splash pages with Sean Murphy's art is just fantastic, dude. Oblivion Song number 3.
Yeah.
Did you read it?
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, so what do you think? I thought it was pretty good.
I really enjoyed it. It shows me that Kirkman's got a long plan here, and it's taking the place of Invincible in my eyes.
Yep.
I really enjoyed kind of the idea that these people who our lead characters trying to save have been there for so long in the Oblivion that they don't want to come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
It creates a unique kind of thing. Because from the beginning, I had heard from or talked to a few people who are critics of Kirkman who were just like, "Oh, it's another TV show. It gives them 3,000 episodes of a TV show."
Yeah,
and right here proves to me that was not his plan.
Yeah. I thought it was good. And like you said, the whole idea that these people got saved from this other zone, but that's been their life for years, and now they have to readjust. And I don't know if it's them trying to readjust or they're infected or something. I think something's gonna. I think they're all gonna have some type of virus, or I don't know. I feel like they're contaminated with something, because that the guy who works in the laboratory with him is kind of strange.
Yeah.
He's like definitely not all there being like he's waking up, he's like gonna kill you in your sleep type of not all there. So I think there's more to it. Yeah, but it's good so far. Interesting that the bad guys find like the teleport device thing. So I'm curious to see what happens with that. No Justice #1. That was a pretty crazy issue this week.
Number 2, you mean? Oh no, it is #1. Sorry.
Yeah, Justice League, No Justice #1. So this is where we find the reason for all of the different Justice Leagues formed by Brainiac. Brainiac basically he starts a fight with the Justice League, and he's like, "No, just kidding. I started a fight to show you guys how weak you are, and that we need each other to battle these like greater beings," which sounds a lot like Marvel, the like creators of the universe, and now they want to like destroy the universe. Yeah, so they branch off into 4 different groups, and as Brainiac is telling them, we have a chance to beat them. This is how we beat them. Amanda Waller is kind of like sick of fighting Brainiac over the years, so she assembles all the greatest telepaths and basically hacks Brainiac's mind. And as he's going to tell them the answer to how do we destroy all the evil things coming to Earth to destroy it, he gets hacked and his brain like explodes and he dies. So they're kind of, shit out of luck. But we have the whole assembly of like heroes and villains, like Starro is on a team, which is hilarious. I thought it was good. I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of big epic splash pages with lots of lore going on. It was kind of like what it was, but it was good.
Yeah, I did too, and I'm really interested to see next week when issue 2 of Avengers and issue 2 of No Justice come out together. Yeah. Since they're both following the same storyline right now.
They're both almost basically the same. I don't know who got to what first, but yeah, it's kind of eerie how closely related these storylines are.
It feels like with most of these cases, it's just great minds think alike.
Yeah.
You got 2 of the best writers in the business. Of course, they're going to come to the same conclusion.
Yep, makes sense. Yeah, and also I read this week. I'm on Black Hammer Volume 2. Volume 1 is really good. I really like Jeff Lemire's take on all these different like renditions of DC and Marvel heroes. I think that's really cool. Royal City Volume 1 I read quite a few comics this week. Royal City Volume 1. I can't read Volume 2 yet because Volume 1 is like so depressing. It's a story by Jeff Lemire in the art as well. But it's like all this family that's been kind of broken up for a while come back to town because the dad is sick, and they're like, there's the deadbeat brother, the sister who's like successful but has a failing marriage, and then there's the brother who's a writer and him and his wife aren't doing well, and then there's the mom who's been cheating on the husband. It's just really depressing, but there's more to it of like they had this younger brother who died, and it kind of like that was the reason the whole family split apart. But now they're all seeing the little brother as how they remembered him, whether he was like a little kid or like an older dude like hanging out and drinking at the bar with him, or like the mom sees him as a priest because she always wanted him to be a priest. But it's just like, it's weird because like they all see him, and it's like you wonder if it's just in their head or it's some type of supernatural thing going on. But man, the whole book feels all over, and it's a really good story, but it's heavy, so you gotta like take it in small doses. Very good. And then Gideon Falls 1 and 2, number 3 comes out next week. It's another Jeff Lemire book. It's an ongoing. And the best way I could describe this book is what I wanted Outcast by Kirkman to be. There's these, just a quick plot synopsis. There's this guy who's a recovering alcoholic priest who gets sent to Gideon Falls because they haven't had a priest in a while, and it's an area that nobody wanted to move to. While in the same story, you have this guy who's labeled as insane because he kind of collects trash, but he doesn't know why he collects trash. He thinks that someone's calling to him to build this like giant red barn and I don't know what the barn symbolizes yet, but basically the end of issue 2 is like his doctor still thinks that he's crazy because he's out digging for nails and pieces of wood and stuff like in garbage, and she sees a glimpse of the barn. Like they have like these visions, all along the same story of the priest moves to this town and wakes up in the middle of the night and sees like the priest that was supposed to be dead in the town was like in his room, and like he follows him outside and finds like someone from the town dead in a field. And obviously, since he's the priest that just moved to the town, who are they going to like think did it? So it's a really interesting story. There's a lot going on, and I think it's really cool. Jeff Lemire definitely knows how to do suspense as well as everything else that he's doing. But yeah, that's what I read this week. So
I've got Barrier issue 1 and 2 came out together.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got 2 stories going on. One's in English and one's in Spanish. And the English story is about a woman in Texas whose husband had passed away. It looks like they own some sort of ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And something happened, and she thinks it's illegal immigrants. On the other side, you have a man in Mexico who's trying to get across the border. And they end up meeting in this weird way, and then right when you think the story is going to be about border control and all this, aliens pop up.
Oh, of course.
And they're sucked into a spaceship.
Nice.
This is a Brian K. Vaughan joint, so it was fantastic. Even the parts in Spanish, normally that's something I don't like in comics, or in any medium for that matter, when they do something in a different language and then don't subtitle it in some way.
Yeah.
But I felt like you got what was going on just because the art.
Yeah, I was trying to understand it without understanding it. You know.
Yeah, you got the idea of like what they were doing. I mean, you may not get the nuance of like how they felt about things, but you knew like what was going on by how the panels were laid out. Yeah, that was really good. I can't wait for issue 3. Luckily, I don't gotta wait long. And I got Venom #1. So this is the Donny
I read that too. Stegman. Yeah, I completely forgot I read Venom #1. But what'd you think?
So normally I don't like Venom. I think he's not a great hero. I fucking love this book.
Yep.
I thought they did a really cool twist on it and added to the background of Venom and made him interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And like most Donny Cates books, like I feel like he just sits in the room and listens to so much metal while he's writing these books, because it's just how I feel when I'm reading it.
Yeah.
So you got like this guy who kidnaps Eddie Brock and basically tells him about his past, like that, you know, you're not the first person to be a Venom, that this was a part of a super soldier program after Captain America, and there's other people out there like you. And at the same time, there's this backdrop of something going on in like old Viking times with the Venom symbiote. So it was crazy. It was a lot of action, and I am on board for a Venom book for probably the first time in my life.
Yeah, I don't care about Venom at all, but I don't know, the whole book was like, it was like the 90s was slapping me in the face is what it felt like. I don't know. I just, the way the art style was and stuff, it was so 90s that I loved it. Was like over the top and it was great. The story was pretty interesting too. So yeah, I'm definitely on board. Donny Cates, that man knows how to write a book for sure.
Yeah, it's been amazing watching him move over to Marvel. And then I got a Kickstarter book. I got the Mighty Mascots.
Nice.
So this is a superhero book that revolves around mascots from cereal boxes coming to life. So you've got like a character that's like Toucan Sam, a character that's like Snap Crackle Pop, a character that's like Captain Crunch, a character like Tony the Tiger, and then the only outlier is there's a Kool-Aid Man-esque character.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so they're this team that's formed by this scientist, and they end up finding this grocery store gets infected, and a bunch of stuff comes out, and they're all plaque building. It sounds like a Saturday morning special, I know, but it's fantastic. They're like plaque building creatures, and they're trying to erode everybody.
Oh my god.
So then there's one character who I can't pin, but it's a Martian character.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes the same formula that's used, and he goes to a dentist's office, and he forms the Crown team.
Oh, man.
Which is a team of 4 heroes that are toothbrush themed.
Oh, my God.
It's pretty ridiculous, but it's actually really good, and the art is good too. Especially for any comic, but especially for a Kickstarter.
What's it called again?
The Mighty Mascots, and it's made by Reckless Sidekick Productions.
Wow. Sounds pretty nuts.
I really liked it. It was a lot of fun, and it ends on a cliffhanger, and I've looked up the people who made it, and they plan on making more. So
awesome.
But that's all I got. So, Mike, where can everybody find you in the interwebs?
You can find me at Fortress Ricker on the Twitters. Is where I am. Where can they find you, Chris?
Oh, thanks for asking.
Oh, no problem.
It's almost like we've done this before.
Yeah, I know.
So you can find me on Twitter at Fortress Chris, and remember the show, you can find us on Twitter at FCN_official, FortressComicNews.com. You're probably watching this on YouTube. If you are, remember, do all that stuff. Thumb up, comment, subscribe. If you're listening to our voices, our silky smooth voices, on the iTunes or any other podcast service, leave us a review. And so the show is now premiering on Twitch as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we're there.
Channel,
we're everywhere. Yep.
Twitch.tv/Fortress Comic News. So if you're listening to this and you would rather watch it on Twitch next week, stop on by. I'm in the chats talking with people if they show up to watch. And so thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Look at Mike one more time.
What?